I've been a long-time fan of Blizzard Entertainment. Back in the day, they were one of the very few PC game developers on the market, making timeless games like StarCraft and Warcraft and Diablo. I never really got into Warcraft back in the day. StarCraft was the first game I got into that was made by this company. It wasn't until late 2005 when I actually heard about Warcraft and added it to my collection of games that I have played. Never really even touched Diablo. I only got into that one very recently. When WoW came to the scene, I sort of moved on from Blizzard, but I still stayed faithful to the company and its games. I invested into games like Overwatch because I thought it was really fun. And at the time, Blizzard was a company of very few but really well supported games. But unfortunately, Blizzard has lost much of the reputation it once garnered from fans. And the release of Warcraft 3 Reforged unfortunately is cementing that stigma further. Blizzard has, of course, been having some trouble for a while now, but this one appears to be the one that hurt fans the most. Let's get into a little bit of history that led up to this. Back in BlizzCon of 2018, during the god awful release of Diablo Immortal, Blizzard did announce a few things that sort of redeemed it. Redeeming it being a very loose choice of words. One of them was, in fact, the release of Warcraft 3 Reforged, or at least the announcement of it. It was actually something that the fans had been clamoring for Blizzard to do for some time now, and I guess they finally decided to do it right then and there. The release of the game was originally stated to be December of 2019, but the game did not actually make its release date, being published a month later to January 28th, 2020. From there, the game has just been absolutely destroyed by users of having a Metacritic score of holy fuck. Is that bad? Holy shit! So I think a big question people are asking, if you haven't heard the news yet, is this. What the f went wrong? So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Reforged was originally supposed to give, what they went back on before the release. That's important because that shows that they were at least giving us the heads up like, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. And where they failed, and what they are doing right now to not help themselves. Holy fuck. So these are the main differences that Warcraft 3 Reforged was intending to accomplish as compared to the original. The Reforged game was going to have improved graphics, redone cinematics, redone voice work, more accessible to modern players, UI and quality of life improvements, additions to the editor, balance changes, integrating everything into its Battle.net client, and most importantly, the abilities to play Warcraft 3 on your own, sort of how they did it for StarCraft Brood War and StarCraft Remastered. The game has had nothing but a myriad of issues since its launch, and they just keep getting worse. But before we trash on this, let's talk about a few things that they did do right, and what I think at least is not the worst additions to it. The game did heighten the visuals, so everything does look a little crisper and sharper. They even added the zoom in feature that StarCraft Remastered has, and each of the character animations enhanced, so you can actually see them doing more things. There's a bit more idle animations, and there's just a lot more detail to the characters in general. So visually, it does look nicer. That is something that I'd have to give them. They even did some changes to the maps so everything fits the area a bit more lore-wise, but doesn't really contradict the story. It's more of an aesthetic change that isn't bad or good. It's just different. It's a thing that happened. Another interesting thing that they did do were the redone cinematics for the game. Blizzard redid the opening cutscene for the game while maintaining the same audio. There's a little bit difference with like the soldier and the orcs fighting, but otherwise the opening animation does look a hell of a lot nicer than it did from 2002. They also did reanimate the final segment between Illidan and Arthas, giving a nice cinematic end to Frozen Throne. Normally, I would try to make this spoiler free, but because of the reviews, I doubt anyone is actually playing, so I have no problem spoiling 18s to this cutscene. You want to see more? Go find it online. And I just looked at my script to see if I have anything more to say, and it looks blank. So now we can start trashing on it. Now we're going to get into the bad. Oh boy. So we mentioned earlier that the visuals actually do look nicer as compared to the original, but the thing is, it's not something that you're going to very well see very often in the game. In order to really get a nice look at the animations, you're going to have to kind of zoom in. And you have to zoom in very close to see it. At don't know if you guys have ever played an RTS, more or less a Blizzard RTS, but you don't want to play very well zoomed in. It's just not very effective. You kind of want to see as much of the map as you can while still being able to keep an eye on your army. Uh, that's just how it is with these kind of games. Now, before I get in, I do want to say that the editor is actually supposed to have been heavily improved compared to the original. I don't know this because I haven't really used the editor too much, but they said that they were going to add a lot of changes to the editor, and I heard a couple of things online that did say that like the editor is much better comparatively. I don't know if that's the case for everyone. But I do believe, because Blizzard does have really good editors, that they did probably enhance those. But that's not what we're here to talking about. We're talking about the biggest point of contention among the changes to the map making system. More importantly, the End User License Agreement, or EULA. Blizzard has changed the EULA, saying that any thing that you make in the editor belongs solely to them, and they have the right to basically decide what they are going to do with that. Now, this is a huge disappointment to fans because this actually limits what you can do creatively. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people that are not happy about this. This means that you can't go and make your own creative idea with any of the maps that you make, because Blizzard now owns that as per copyright. If you make a map in there or you make an idea, Blizzard has the right to use that and they don't have to credit you, which is very weird because I'm pretty sure Blizzard back in the day with the StarCraft 2 editor did actively support a lot of the custom maps. So this is a huge slap in the face. I'm pretty sure that the Iron Chef map for StarCraft 2 was originally a mod that Blizzard actually supported. Basically, Blizzard did do back in the day a lot of support, so this just seems like a gigantic slap in the face. I can, in some tiny aspect, understand why Blizzard did this. Blizzard used to be the king of these kind of game styles. The games League of Legends and Dota were directly inspired for custom games directly off of Warcraft 3's map editor. But now MOBAs kind of dominate the top down strategy scene these days, whereas games like StarCraft 2 have been sort of pushed to the side. Which, for someone like me who believes MOBAs and people who play them are absolute human trash, just kidding, ignore that part. I can't argue that it has become a dominant scene in gaming nowadays. Blizzard inadvertently created a rival that overtook it. For me, who's trying to be a little bipartisan right now, it's like, I understand why they did it, but I also understand why people are pissed off. But I personally think that they probably should not have did that because, first of all, they're already in hot water anyway from choices that aren't related to Reforged. So doing this and slapping the fans across his face is probably the worst thing that you can be doing right now. It doesn't also help that custom games are also running into a myriad of issues. I've also seen some instances where the new editor has outright had trouble integrating custom models that may have been carried over prior before the launch of Warcraft 3 Reforged. While I hear the editor's updates are pretty nice to use, custom models and animations appear to not be there or look worse than they did earlier. I wasn't able to find too many more relating to the editor and the issues that are coming with, so I have no idea if this is still something that is going on, if it's like a permanent issue, or if it will eventually be fixed. However, if the game is taking this approach to custom modes, I would not be surprised if custom models just don't work at all. I brought up a point about how the game does look nice and all the cinematics as a good thing, but it's also a double-edged sword. While the Arthas and Illidan fight is really nice to look at, and a huge step up from the original, jeez, it's really the only redone cutscene in the entire campaign. So if you were expecting a large amounts of redone assets and such for the adventure you would be going down, be ready to be disappointed. The only real two cutscenes that have been remade so far have been the opening cutscene and then the final fight with Illidan and Arthas. Other than that, every other cutscene is the same, just maybe supported with 4K, and that's about it. There were plans originally, as I mentioned earlier, to remake the whole game using more WoW lore as well as redesigning certain lore aspects and redoing some cutscenes. But we do have an explanation for why this happened. In November of last year, and I think maybe even like the years before then, there was a lot of backlash towards Blizzard in the attempt to saying like, "Hey, we don't want you to do these story elements. Please leave them the same." And apparently, it was widespread enough among the forums to where They basically decided to can the original thing. Of course, that's the explanation that I'm going with in trying to be as fair as possible, since Blizzard was a company that I used to really enjoy. But, that could easily be chalked up to just like, I don't know, the politically correct statement to say, or like the correct business statement. I also heard rumors sometime of last year that there were like a huge budget cut coming to the development team, so that could have definitely impacted probably some of the decisions. I just feel like if they were going to do something like that, they probably should have informed the fans earlier, saying like, "Hey, we're not going to be doing this," or maybe even instead of rebranding it as Reforged, branding it as Remastered. That's probably another thing that they could have done that would have been probably a lot better. It was clear at the beginning of the development that they probably had much higher aspirations for this, but they chose to backtrack on a large number of those promises, assuming that everything I stated earlier was the actual reasons, of course. I'm certain that Blizzard had some fundamental judgment in the way they went with this. Couldn't hold a straight face there. This game is also experiencing a myriad of technical issues as well. There's various bug reports coming on of missions being automatically ended in defeat, people having a difficulty logging in, and being on being unable to connect to the multiplayer, campaign not booting up, and there's even a huge visual bug that has been plaguing the differences between classic and remastered. Blizzard actually addressed this in a statement, and they said that they're going to later this week get out a patch for that. So that's good that they're at least getting on the nail with the bug issues. But the fact of the matter is, this is a game beloved by fans, and you completely botched the release. This is a beloved game by fans. Why would you try to ensure its launch is one of the worst in gaming history?
Bethesda is not a great example. You should follow Blizzard.
On the top of that, there's also a large number of issues that involve the new Blizzard client. You can no longer use the old launcher for Warcraft 3. It will automatically download the client for Re the Forged variant, and you'll have to play with that. And doing so, unfortunately, exposes you to all of the issues that came before then. There's a lot of features from the old Warcraft 3 client that have just been outright removed from the game. A lot of people speculate, since Blizzard does routinely patch their games, they have been doing a lot of patches for StarCraft 2 and such, even today, that some of these features will probably be eventually added back in. But why were they cut in the first place, I think, is a great question to ask, and something Blizzard should have asked way before release. And one of the most egregious issues with the game is the fact that they are still using the footage from the 2018 marketing. It's still up there and showing that like this game is supposed to look like that when the game doesn't look anything but. Like, here's the differences between the cutscenes that you can see right here. I don't even need to play like the full video. You can probably already see that there is a huge difference. Instead of using cutscenes that are animated and such, they basically use the in-game engine to do their cutscenes, which is what they did in 2002. Blizzard, seriously, what are you doing wrong? I had faith in Blizzard a while back, like maybe like say 3 years ago, that they were still going to find a way to work their way through. I mean, Overwatch was still doing pretty good. Everything still seemed to be going okay. A lot of the issues, or a lot of the things that I am seeing with the Warcraft 3 remaster, are kind of mirroring the StarCraft remaster that came out some years back. The difference is, I don't actually feel that the StarCraft remaster was more of a cash grab. I mean, it probably was. I have no doubts in my mind that it was very easily a cash grab. But the difference of the StarCraft remaster is that they actually gave fans what they wanted right at the start. Blizzard, when they did the StarCraft remaster, asked basically the Korean net, like, hey, what do you want to see? And they basically said, like, don't change the game, leave it as it is, just give it a nice fresh coat of paint. Blizzard did that. They changed no gameplay, they redid the visuals, they did add some nice CG renders for the in-between text parts of StarCraft, and they just did some overall changes in support to the game. Was it a shameless cash grab? More than likely. But the price for this remaster was actually pretty reasonable at only about $15. I mean, if you're going to remaster a game, and you're going to charge that price, it's not a bad remaster then. Especially since you did do exactly what the fans asked for, so no one can be mad. Warcraft 3 Reforged, however, costs $30. It's insane. I always thought Dark Souls Remastered was inappropriately priced at $40. I got it for $20 because I had prepared a die edition, but even still. What could have been a beloved remaster of a very highly loved game turned into a shameless cash grab. One that even if you don't buy, we are still stuck with. and all of the caveats and shit that goes with it. Blizzard issued a very shitty response to the disaster they made shortly after launch, which was not well received by literally anyone. However, to give some good news, they are issuing currently a no question asked refund of the game. I still don't like how the game turned out, but at least they manned up enough to basically say, okay, we'll let you opt out of this and we'll give you back your money. Sorry about that, Blizzard, but I'm going to be taking my $42 elsewhere. Or at least until the game is patched back into a playable state to where I can acknowledge and say, hey, this is okay. And even if I don't want to, I have the original anyway. I might be stuck with the new launcher, but I'll live. I really don't go online with the game anyway. Not too many people I personally know actually play the game. The only Blizzard games I lately play would be Overwatch and StarCraft. Besides, I've been way too invested lately in Dark Souls, so I mean, I'm not really playing Warcraft 3 online for the most part anyway. The only game I really play online is StarCraft Remastered, and that's only generally with people I know, like in LAN parties. Devil May Cry 5 has also taken up a lot of my time. It's a sad reality to be living in right now. The fact that Blizzard, one of the most cherished game companies I have grown to love, has gone the way of companies like EA is a really shitty reality to be living in. It's not like they even had to be this way. They have a literal statue of Thrall right outside their headquarters. I don't know about you. I don't think these guys are in any need of money. I have no idea why they're partnered with Activision at this point. I don't know. All this right now is disgusting. I'm not supporting Blizzard anymore until I see some changes happen in their corporate structure. And overall, yeah. Yeah, I'm upset. Thankfully, the rest of the planet is on my side with this. Anyway, that's all for now. Expect new animations and insanity soon. 3 are in the works. There will be more insanity to come soon. Subscribe to the channel and feel free to put notifications if you want to see some random stuff or heavy stuff. Or just don't and leave me into obscurity. I don't really care. Whichever comes first. Thanks, everyone.